Hi everyone, welcome to my ADC tier list. This is a video on what ADCs are best to climb with regardless as to patch. It's a video on what ADCs will help you improve at the game, as well as what ADCs I think you should probably avoid because they might not be so helpful if you want to develop as a player overall. We start off strong with Akshan, who's definitely not an ADC, and then we cover someone interesting, Aphelios. Aphelios is definitely somebody I think you can climb with. He's not as hard as people think he is, but at the same time, he's like harder than most ADCs because gun management is a really important skill. If you have the wrong guns for a situation, you can actually solo lose games. It's crazy how much gun management matters on this champion. It's not absurdly hard, he's not absurdly complex, but he's also very low mobility, and he's kind of support agnostic, which is a positive. You can play with Engage or Enchanters. But I think gun management is just one of those things where, like, if you're really good at it, he can go in permagoaded, but other than that, I'm just going to keep him in knock yourself out. Like, feel free to play him, but he's not, like, the best of the best. Up next, we have Ashe, who I think is a perma-goated ADC to climb with. She is the premier utility ADC in my opinion. She's pretty good early, not as broken as she used to be, but still strong early game. Her scaling is actually really good if you actually manage to build damage items. You know, you actually build items that help you deal damage, and you're not building some stuff like Phantom Dance or Second. You will deal damage on this champion. I personally recommend Yuntal into Runons, into IE, into Armor Pen, but knock yourself out. There's a million builds you can go on Ashe. Her slows are really broken. Her ultimate's one of the best engage tools in the game that's also non-committal. She kind of has everything in my opinion except for a dash, so you have to be wary of your positioning, but you also have a bunch of really good face check tools in your W and your E, which also helps give your team information. Overall, in my opinion, a really good ADC to help you climb with and to teach you the game. Something I'll mention here is that in my opinion, the best ADCs don't matter what support you have, right? So Ashe can be played with Enchanters or Engage, which is why I think she's in perma-goated. Caitlyn, I think, is in normally good. I don't think she's in perma-goated because she isn't as good with certain supports as Ashe is, but she is very strong in my opinion. Her early game is really good. Her late game is really good. She just kind of has a mid-game dip if you don't get ahead in lane, but lucky for Caitlyn, she has one of the most oppressive laning phases in the entire game. She has mobility on her E, which can get you over some small walls, which is actually really helpful. Her ultimate isn't really that effective. Most of her damage is in her headshots. She's absurdly good at countering stuff like Zhonya's. I think she would be in permagoated if she wasn't favored towards needing an enchanter, in my opinion. She really wants someone like a Lux who can help her dominate lane, or a Karma. I don't think she's as good with Nautilus. Not that she's like bad with Nautilus, but she definitely wants to be playing that poke sort of playstyle. I think Corki is one of those ADCs who is normally good, but I'd be careful simply because of patch. He's normally pretty strong early game. I think he falls off a little bit, unless you go the crit build, in which case he's probably fine mid-game. But I don't think he has as much tank shredding capabilities as other ADCs. But if your burst is squishy, he probably scales perfectly fine. Very strong early game. I think you generally want engage supports with Corki. He's okay with enchanters, so he's definitely not like down here. If he was like bad with Lulu, he definitely wouldn't be this high. He's just an overall okay ADC, but he can be somewhat pro-jailed or high elo jailed in my opinion. Draven is someone I believe you should avoid simply because he really wants engage supports, and besides that, if you can get over the hump or you're willing to play Draven with anything, he's a fine ADC to climb with, but I think he's also really hard. But if you're willing to engage on that journey, feel free to play Draven. He's not like the worst of the worst to climb with. Next up, we have Ezreal, and this is going to be a hot take, but I think you should probably avoid Ezreal. He's the hardest ADC in the entire game. Yes, he's loads of fun, and if you love Ezreal, I would play him. But unless you really love him, his difficulty is really notable. Like, he's strong early game. You kind of need to snowball because you fall off at one item, then spike again really hard at two items. So you kind of want to snowball, use your strong early game to get to that 2-item spike so you can take over the map. And if you don't do that, I think you'll fall off. He's really hard. You have to E forward. If you're not in love with Ezreal, I wouldn't play him. Jhin is perma-goated. He just kind of has everything. His early game is good. He's good with all sorts of supports. He's not amazing at shredding tanks, but that's not really his job. His utility makes up for that lack of tank shredding in my opinion, and he deletes Squishy's late game. His scaling is really good. Additionally, if he gets first setup on objectives, if he sets up a bunch of traps, he can make it really, really hard for the enemy team to even think about contesting. So I think Jhin is a really good pick to climb with, and he's normally pretty strong overall. Up next, we have Jinx from Arcane, who I think is maybe the best ADC in the entire game to climb with. I've said this before, Jinx has everything you want in an ADC to climb with. Her lane is solid, her scaling is probably the best in the game, her range is really amazing. She preys on the solo queue weaknesses of players, where if one person dies, you suddenly become Thanos for a little bit. She's just an amazing ADC. Can be played with engage, can be played with supports, really punishes bad positioning, which makes you learn positioning. Just honestly an awesome champion. Like maybe, in my opinion, the best ADC in the entire game to climb with. This is maybe my biggest hot take of the entire video, but I think Kai'Sa is one of those champions you should definitely avoid. She is short range, she requires an engaged support, and she's very, very punishing. She's not actually a hyperscaler like other ADCs, she's a 3-item spiker. If you get to Giga late game like you were behind, and you finally got those items, you're not actually going to one-shot people like some of the other attack damage carries on this list. So because of all those factors, she's really hard, she's short range, she's kind of pro jail, she needs an engaged support. I really wouldn't bother touching Kai'Sa unless you're genuinely in love with her, in which case knock yourself out. Kalista is a do not pot. What this means is do not touch, but I misspelled it. The champ is just the worst champ in the entire game. She is Giga, like 44% win rate. She is permanently pro-jailed. Never touch Kalista, just don't even bother doing it. Even if she gets another rework, I just wouldn't trust it. Your mastery is going to be punished with nerfs. Don't play Kalista if you care about yourself. Kennen and Kindred are definitely not ADCs. Don't play them ADC unless you have some really funky Kindred Taric combo cooking. Kog'Maw is a knock yourself out sort of champion. He's alright to climb with in my opinion. I think he really wants an enchanter, but isn't terrible with engage. He can play AP or AD. I think AD is definitely better, but AP can be viable in certain game states if you have a lot of AD damage on your team already. He's pretty weak early, so that's something to watch out for, so I don't think you can pick him in every game, but if you love Kog'Maw, I don't see a reason not to play him as a champion. He's pretty solid overall. Lucian is a knock yourself out pick as well. He's not as bad with engage as he used to be, and he's not bound to Nami like he used to be, so I think he's fine to climb with. He's just really, really, really hard. Kind of similar to Ezreal, but his scaling is really good. You just have to be, good at him to use it. So if you love Lucian, play Lucian. I think he's better than all the champs below him to climb with at least. Lux is weirdly enough a viable ADC in terms of bot lane. In fact, I think she's normally pretty good. You just have to be really indexed into your laning. But if you love laning with Lux, I think ADC is actually Lux's best role. Same with Mel for very similar reasons. They can abuse ADC's mid-games not being as good as theirs and can force early prio for objectives with their absurd levels of wave clear. Misfortune is a perma-goated ADC to climb with. I think she's probably a normally good if you're Diamond Plus, but for everyone else, she's a really, really, really good ADC. Her scaling is good. Her early game is absurdly strong. She teaches you how to dominate lanes. She's fine with enchanters, really good with engage. Overall, just a very, very, very solid champion, no notes. Nila is one of the most funky champions in League. If you love her, knock yourself out, feel free to play her. But I think people are lulled into a false sense of security when they see her kit and think she's good with enchanters when she's actually absurdly broken with certain engage supports such as Taric. Taric Nila is really, really, really deadly duo. I think she's not absurdly hard, so she doesn't go into probably avoid. She's just a really weird champion. I haven't seen a lot of Nilas, so my expertise on the champion is pretty low. My gut feeling is if you love her, she's probably fine to play. Quinn's not an ADC. Samira is next to Nila for similar reasons. I'm going to drop her down. I think Nila can be played more with enchanters than Samira can. Samira is one of those champs that needs an engaged support. Actually, I think she's very similar to Kai'Sa, right? They're basically the same champion. They both need engaged supports. They're both very short range. They're both very feast or famine. I would avoid these champions if you want to climb consistent. Sorry, I'm having somewhat mic troubles. Either way, Senna is not an ADC. She gets consistently buffed into the ADC role, then nerfed out of it once pros realize how broken she is. I really wouldn't touch her. Seraphine is with Lux Mel, and she's just the more scaling version of these champs, right? She's just a battle mage in the ADC role who has a funny whoa ultimate. I personally wouldn't play her but I think she is objectively good. She just doesn't really teach you ADC. She teaches you bot lane, right? She's kind of a boosting champion in my opinion. Like, you get put on Seraphine ADC while your duo gets you up to whatever elo you want to be. I don't know. I mean, she's fine enough, I guess. Sivir is a perma-goated ADC to climb with. Her wave clear is really good. Her scaling is really good. You can play aggressively early. A lot of Sivir players don't play aggressively early, but you definitely can. Her spell shield is really good utility. Her range is a weakness that can't be played around. She's good with engage and with range supports like Lulu and Karma. So overall, no notes. Sivir is a really good ADC to climb with. She's also probably one of the easiest ADCs in the entire game. I have made a new tier. I call it the Mage tier. These champs do not actually teach you bot lane, but they teach you how to get free LP. They are, in fact, viable bot lane. I would say they're better at getting you LP than all the champs below them, but I would avoid touching them if you actually want to learn ADC, and you might troll team comp sometimes if you try to pick them. TF is here, even though he can be built AD, because I simply don't believe in him as a consistent bot laner. Now, I hate Smolder. If I could put him in Do Not Touch, I would, but he's objectively a knock yourself out sort of champion. He's fine to climb with. He's very selfish. You really need to prioritize yourself in your own farm. You need to get to 225 as fast as possible, and that means you need to have a good laning phase, because if you get put behind in lane, you're not going to scale. You'll reach 225 later and later on, so get good at laning with Smolder, and you'll probably be fine with him. Tristana is a normally good ADC to climb with. She can be played with engage, she can be played with support. Her scaling is really good. Her burst is actually fantastic with her E damage. Her Q steroid is one of the best attack speed steroids in the game, and with lethal tempo, it makes her able to stack it incredibly fast. Overall, a very solid champion to climb with. Next up, we have Twitch, who, I'll be honest, I don't really know much about. He's a really weird champion because you kind of want to play him like an assassin. I don't think you can play him every game because he's honestly pretty difficult. He does have AP or AD builds that benefits him, but I think he's one of those champions you should probably avoid because of a mixture of difficulty and not amazing with certain supports / team comps. Varus is one of the most flexible ADCs in the entire game, but unlike the other utility AD carries, I think he's pretty hard and kept weak for pro, so I think he's normally good. He's still a fine champ to climb with, but if you're playing on-hit Varus, it's really difficult. If you're playing lethality Varus, you're not providing the niche of an actual EDC that your team needs. He's more like a mage, so still a fine champ to climb with, but I don't think he's as good as the 5 and perma-goated. Up next, we have Vayne, who is a champ you should avoid because of how hard she is. She's very similar to Kai'Sa, where she is very short range, she's very selfish. I think she's more flexible because she can be played with enchanters, but besides that, I really wouldn't touch Vayne unless you're basically in love with her, and even then I'd use her as a counter pick champ. I think Xayah is a good pool finisher in terms of, I don't think she should be your main, but if you're having like 2 main champs, I think Xayah being one of those is perfectly fine. So for that purpose, I think she's normally good. She's pretty hard. I don't think as hard as like Ezreal, but still tough. Feathers are a weird mechanic, and again, unless you're into an engage comp, Xayah is not valuable, or not nearly as valuable as she could be. Yunara is one of the newest ADCs in the entire game, and I've heard some opinions. I think she's a really good ADC to climb with. Unless they giga nerf her, this champion kind of has everything. She has a strong level 1, her level 6 spike is really good, her scaling is absurd, her wave clear is good, her teamfight DPS is nuts. This champion just kind of has everything. The fact you can E with your move speed, ultimate, then dash again is just crazy. Like, other ADCs can't do that. She feels like a new broken Zeri, but not as obnoxious as the release Zeri was. Speaking of Zeri, Zeri is a knock yourself out sort of champion. She's one of those champs where if you love scaling, if you love her power fantasy, feel free to play her, but she is really hard. She can be played with enchanters or engage, which is why she's here and not below, but at the same time, if you're not mechanically gifted, I personally wouldn't touch Zeri. Final thoughts on ADC is that it's a fine role to climb with, in my opinion. I think it does punish players who are passive and think that your job is to scale. I disagree. I think your job as an ADC should be to win lane like the other roles. You can't just rely on your team late game or you will be let down. You need to make yourself a threat, kind of like Paul Belter said. You need to be able to bait abilities and the like. What champions do you think should be in different spots on the tier list? Let me know, and I hope you have a good day.